Then there was the remote team member who was really quite open about that they had mentally checked out of the session and they were annoyed that they had to waste their time this way. And for me as a facilitator, I just felt like I'd failed. So the other thing that might have been in effect in the room, right, is something called the bystander effect, otherwise known as social loafing, which is a term that I find quite an endearing term, to be honest, but unfortunately it's not an endearing effect when it's in play. So what psychologists term social loafing is essentially where an individual is less likely to input when they're in a group. They're less likely to do something when they're in a group. And the bystander effect example of this is you're stood at a bus stop and someone's being mugged and no one at the bus stop does anything to stop it because they're just presuming everyone else will do it. This is not so great for the other folks who actually have to shoulder the load and do the extra work when some folks are not stepping up to the plate. But to be honest, I don't know which of these things was necessarily in effect, right? So carrying on with the session and thinking about brainstorming. So one person was talking at a time and this was okay, but I don't really feel like we were generating all of these ideas that we were supposed to be coming up with. I thought it was like, it's supposed to be like a quantitative exercise, but do you know what? Somehow we've got anchored on the first idea. And as a facilitator, my wrist is not exactly aching from writing tons and tons of stuff down. And oh no, I've just looked at my watch and there's only like 30 minutes has gone. We've talked about the same thing for 30 minutes. We've now got only 30 minutes left to generate, arguably more items than we would have done had we been able to talk about more items at the beginning. So, all right, folks, we've got to really knuckle down and try and get some more ideas out here. At the end of that 30 minutes, actually not much changed. We only came out with about kind of 3 or 4 more ideas. And okay, so this wasn't what we expected it to be. And unfortunately, when we looked at what the ideas were, there wasn't sort of much diversity between them, to be honest. It's like we'd played it a little bit safe. It's like groupthink had basically kicked into the room. And another unfortunate thing was the first 2 ideas that we spoke about, they weren't exactly things that were going to light the world on fire and massively excite our end users or our customers. And that had been the thing that then informed subsequent ideas after it. We had tried a little bit during the session as well to, encourage more participation. So we thought we'd try and go around the room. We switched up halfway because we realized people weren't speaking and we didn't manage to get around the room to everyone. And one of the folks who we did get to happened to be our one remote participant who had their camera off. And it took a while for them to get off of mute. And then they asked, what was the question again? And can someone just remind me of the context? And if I'm honest with you, the whole thing just absolutely sucked. Oh, it was so bad. It felt so bad. We didn't hit our goal. We didn't get loads of ideas out. We didn't really get a lot of valuable ideas out either. And to my sort of horror, we might have to do this kind of session again. I don't want to do this session again. Or even worse, we might have to try and build some of the things that we really didn't think were particularly great ideas. Now, the team member who'd been really, really trying hard to contribute actually ended up not feeling very good at the end of the session. They'd found it stressful and tiring. The team member who'd been waiting for their turn to speak, they were disappointed. They were kind of feeling frustrated by the end of it. Then there was the remote team member who was really quite open about that they had mentally checked out of the session and they were annoyed that they had to waste their time this way. And for me as a facilitator, I just felt like I'd failed. I don't think this is what Osborne was envisaging when he said, hey, let's have a brainstorming session, right?